Well, I'll call the meeting to order at six.
Hold on 1 minute. I got to get the live stream
Okay.
going, and then you'll see a little button to the left of yours, on the left top of your screen, to let you know that it's started.
Nick, how are you?
Good, how are you, George?
Not too bad. Peter, I don't think I know, and Ben, I know.
How's everything going? Everybody health-wise doing good, hanging in there?
Everything's fine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we're fine over here.
Well,
It's moving along, but a little slower than usual, but we're getting there. The moving to live
Okay.
stream.
says it's recording.
The recording is an internal recording onto the cloud, so that just in case the live stream doesn't work, I can then post it later. So I'm going to step away for a minute to just make sure that I don't have any high users on my Wi-Fi right now. So I just closed down a high volume user, so we should be okay here.
Is there a quorum?
Yes.
There is. Yep, all we need is 3, and we have them. I can't
Okay.
find Peter. Peter must be hiding somewhere.
Are you guys all familiar with using Zoom? Is it anyone's first time using Zoom?
No.
My second.
So, you can switch the view, right, from gallery to speaker view?
I think that's what I've got now. I've got like 3 up the top and then you in the middle.
Yeah, I generally find it easier in that view than in the speaker view because it just keeps switching. It's so confusing.
Okay.
David.
I got one more.
Is that David?
Yeah, they tell me you're short somebody tonight.
Yeah, but we have Peter and Ben and myself, but so we're gonna have a quorum as soon as, I don't know quite the procedure for getting Ben on here, but we have to, the first order of business is gonna be to select a chair and a vice chair as soon as we can. Harriet left for a minute, but I think she's gonna come back and then we're gonna call the meeting to order.
Well, I'm gonna have to get up and down some because I could help my wife here, so.
Okay. But I think once we get Ben on board here, I think then we'll have a quorum and you can take your leave if you need to.
Are you
Thanks for
gonna join the
sharing.
board?
Ben is going to.
Good, I heard a rumor, but somebody asked me about it and I said, I have no idea.
You might want to stay on because you might get elected chair if you go.
Can't be chair, can't be chair if you're an alternate. While we're waiting, let me go see how she's doing.
Okay.
Nick,
Yes.
whenever David comes back, you should just go ahead and start the meeting. I'm working with John to try to get the live stream going.
Okay. That's all right. That's what we'll do. I still don't see Peter. Is Peter there?
Yeah, you probably have an arrow at the top of your screen where you can scooch the participant windows, and you'll probably be able to see him that way.
Oh, I keep trying to.
Click on it.
No, I keep trying to do a touchscreen. Oh, there's Peter. Yeah, I'm trying to do it with a touchscreen. That doesn't work too well with this computer.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself unless you all ask me a direct question. That way you can just go right ahead, okay?
Can I ask
Okay.
you a question? I sent you an email about the backup paperwork.
To me? Okay. All right, I'll check that.
Okay, well, we're just waiting, George, sorry about this. We're just waiting for David to get back.
The meeting doesn't start for another 4 minutes anyway.
Oh, okay, I got
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, right.
Okay.
What's the big special town meeting tomorrow night? Isn't it tomorrow night?
29th,
Didn't I see an email that said there was a special town meeting? Or is that next week?
20, next week.
I thought I saw an email that said there was a special town meeting.
The
What's
September-
that about? Here's David. Now,
Zoning code.
Not
Okay.
important anyway.
all right, thanks for coming back, David. So it's 6:30 right now, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is the selection of a chair and a vice chair. Would anybody like to nominate anybody for either of these positions?
Who wants to do it?
Well, I'm already the vice chair. I don't know if, so that's that. I'm the vice chair. I don't know if there's a sort of succession that I should move into the chairman's spot or not. I just don't know that. And if anybody's willing to speak up, speak up.
I'll just tell you on the Board of Selectmen, there's no, the way they do it, there's nothing in the bylaws that says that the vice chair then becomes the chair the next year or anything like that. Every year it's just sort of, someone makes a nomination and it goes, and someone's the chair and a vice chair, obviously just to run the meeting. So I don't think the planning board, correct me if I'm wrong, has bylaws, correct? We just use the state model.
Right.
I'd say David's the parliamentarian here.
So as far as I know, there are no specific bylaws other than what's in our ordinance of how many members we can have, and that's about it.
Right.
So the chair has always been chosen by the board.
Every year, David, is that a yearly thing?
Oh, it hasn't been. I was chosen chair when Mel Priest stepped down on the night we were having our first meeting on what are now the condos in town. Mel stood up and said, "Well, I'm resigning." And I suggested Dave Bailey be chair, and everybody put up their hands and said, "Yay," and that was it. And then
Yeah, that's kind of how I got to be vice chair. It's about the same way. It's sort of a thing by default. So,
when I said I was going to step back and become an alternate, I convinced Bonnie to be the chair, and we all agreed, and that was it.
okay. So what do you have to say for yourself, Peter?
I'm an alternate, so, and I will say that I'm supremely unqualified to be a chair or a vice chair at this point, just through my lack of understanding the process. I would want to have some years under my belt before I can.
Okay,
do
so
anything like that.
so we either get to nominate some Dave Hewitt or Jim Brinkler, myself or Ben steps up to the plate.
Yeah. How are you feeling, Nick? Are you, and usually it's a question of time, at least at the Board of Selectmen, it's always sort of been a question of time because there's a little bit more involved with being the chair and managing the agenda and, you know, communicating with town staff a little bit more. So it's usually a question of who has the time, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know where you are and if you've got the time to do it or the interest.
I kind of like my position right now, and I commute to work. I'm working up in Camden, or and sometimes out on the island. So my time is a little bit, and I've got a lot of other property right now I'm managing. So I'd step up to it if somebody asked me to, but that's where I'll leave it, I guess.
So I certainly don't want to overstep. I am coming off of a year of being the chair of the Board of Selectmen, so I don't have any problems running meetings. I'm kind of used to it at this point, so I'm happy to do that. However, I'm a freshman planning board member. I have zero experience on the planning board. However, I have a lot of experience with zoning. So that being said, I don't want to step in and say, oh, I'll do it. But if nobody else wants to do it, I'm happy to do it just from the perspective of running the meetings and moving things along. And we could just make it for a year, or when we get more of us at the next meeting, let's say, we could revisit it then. There's nothing that says we can't.
I'm fine with that.
I like that idea.
I think that's a good idea. I'm still myself, I sort of rely on some of the older board members to, as like I said, to be the parliamentarians. But so why don't we just leave it at that I'll nominate David, all in favor, or I'll nominate Ben as chair and myself as vice chair. Anybody want to second that? I'll make a motion to nominate Ben Fry for chairman of the Board of Planning Board and Nick Buck as vice chair. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
All right, Peter McNaughton seconds that motion. And is there any discussion?
It's a great idea.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, that's first order of business out of the way. And David, if you'd like to hang out, you can hang out. If you've got other things to do, you can take your leave now. We do have a quorum with Ben and Peter.
Listen in for a few minutes here.
Okay,
Right.
so
At this point, Nick, do you want to run the rest of the meeting?
I'll just run the rest of this meeting if that's all right.
Perfect.
So the application we have before us now tonight is George Foe for Maya Hart. And it's on Glidden Street, map 5, lot 67. And it's the installation of a wharf and a ramp and a float. And George, why don't you just tell us why don't you just give us an overview of what you're up to?
Yeah, there's be a wharf go in. She has a 12-acre lot there with no buildings on it. I thought somewhere along the line she said it's covenant, so there will never be buildings on it. But once Maya sold the estate, they don't have a dock access. So her and her niece Anna would like a dock for kayaking. So we've come up with basically the application is a 5 by 25 foot wharf, 6 pilings for the main wharf. On the side of it, as you enter, there'll be another, I think it's maybe 4 by 6. 4 by 6 on one side, be a dock box on one side and a place for a seat on the other. Maya's in her 70s. For the most part, Maya's going to go down there and be able to sit on her wharf on the river. So There is a small change on the, well, I don't even know if you have, I don't know what you have for information. But it's,
Well, we have the application from the Marine Resources.
Yeah. okay, on that, it calls the only change, there is, it calls for a 3 by 25 foot ramp, and we're gonna extend it to a 30-foot ramp. There's just been, as it all evolved, been some discussion that the old 24-foot ramp in the downstream location that they had one was fairly steep. And as people get older, nowadays these guys are building these ramps 40 feet long, and people are liking that steepness. We're gonna kick it up to 30 feet. So increase by 5. And I've contacted DEP, and she's made the adjustments and changes, cashed the check yesterday. So there'll be a small change.
Yeah, that's what is listed here. It's listed here as a 30-foot
Ramp. Oh,
Yes.
I'll
And
set that.
the dimensions of the float are 10 by 12. The length of the fixed section is 24 by 5.
I thought I thought the permit was a 10 or 12 by 16, but we're just going to reduce it to a 12 by 12.
A 10 by 12, the float.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 12. I think it's 12 by 12. Maybe is that reading that wrong?
I'm reading it right off of your proposed
Oh,
dock, a wharf. It says 10 by 12.
no. That's it then.
Yeah. So, and this is behind the big house on the.
No, this will be in once you go through the pillars on the street, Glidden Street, which apparently that may not even be Glidden Street, but that's what it's called because it becomes a private road
Right.
past the pillars. And so there was discussion on what's the name of the street. And so anyway, once you go past the pillars, on the right, there's that big field. And it's basically in the center of that big field.
Okay.
On the
All
right.
right.
Ask a
There's
question.
probably
Yes, David.
somewhere around 700 feet of frontage there, or something like that, 700 to 800, and it's basically in the middle.
Okay, David?
George mentioned that there's a covenant on that land. If I remember correctly, from the DRA, that 12 acres is forever protected. And I believe that, well, it would be the Coastal Rivers now, is in charge of monitoring that property. So have they been
Yes.
contacted?
Yeah. What is it? Huffenagel?
Yes, Huffnagel.
Right. He's been contacted, and also both neighbors have been contacted. Will Byers and Scott Kavanaugh. And they were all contacted early.
I
Okay.
know the field because we had, the DRA had their 25th anniversary party there with tent and the whole deal, so.
Well, it still belongs to Maya,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Yeah, it's just a covenant protected from ever putting a building on it, I believe.
Right. Right. That must devalue it in the tax base in Newcastle, doesn't it?
I wouldn't know about that. Ben might be able to answer that, but,
Not that it's pertinent to this conversation, but if a piece of property, but I don't know.
The short answer is it just depends. And I don't know off the top of my head.
Doesn't matter to me.
okay. Now, David, I'm just gonna ask you, should we go down through the criteria on this? Because it's in the shoreland?
Although the criteria appear to be, I got this up on my other computer here, all listed under the license review by the state.
Yes, so, and in the state, he's got a signed letter from the state approving it.
But I'm looking at it's called the license review, in which it says what they discuss: soil erosion, aesthetic, recreational, habitat considerations, water quality, wetlands and water bodies.
Uh,
Looks like they've discussed everything that,
It looked pretty thorough to me.
It was. I read through it earlier, but I'm just wondering if the town had any other criteria that, I mean, there's not gonna be any power there, there's not gonna be any lights.
That's right.
Um,
That's correct.
I don't remember any other doc that we've put in that we had any special criteria other than making sure that the state had approved, you know, that it was approved to be out in the water and that the land belonged to the person that was putting it in. I think the last one we did was down on the Baker property after Bob died, because he didn't want to put in a alarm ramp and he couldn't hardly make it up and down that steep ramp. And then the new people put in a longer ramp. And the only thing that was discussed there was whether it was going to impede any clamming, which the state said it didn't. So
yeah, in the past, I've had to get the Army Corps of Engineers in there if it was gonna, you know, affect the vegetation, but when I read through this, I didn't see that it was.
Yes,
It's
the
mostly mud flats. Go ahead, George.
Army Corps of Engineers has reviewed it.
They have.
Yes. Oh, yes, the Army Corps insists, you know, I contacted all, I think there was 5 tribal, the Micmacs, the Passamaquoddies. I had to personally send a letter to them explaining. He sent the permits, but I had to send another letter to 5 different tribes.
And so that's all,
That's governed by the Army Corps.
okay. And that paperwork got submitted to the state, and then that is in the application.
They've got it all, it's all approved, as well as another one that went through that was the historical, State Historical Conservation Committee. And they reviewed it, and I have a letter from them that, you know,
Okay,
this isn't causing any, there was nothing came back on any of it that said this was.
okay, all right.
Just a quick question, George. I've got Google Earth up here. Just where, because I wasn't listening properly, I was fiddling with my computer. Where approximately after those stone gateway to the property, whereabouts is this going to go
As
in
soon as
again?
you, well, as soon as you go through the gates,
Yeah.
the big field's on the right.
Yes.
I think Will Byers, which side of the gates is Will Byers on? Both maybe, or?
South side, southwest side.
And then, so the question is where is the dock related to the field?
Well, there's a lot of field with some pathways across it, and then some ways in, obviously, is the house. My interest
This
is
isn't
just
to the
in,
house.
huh?
This doesn't go as far as the house.
Doesn't go as far as the house.
This lot.
Just because there's also boat traffic up and down here. Wondering whether that part of the river is relatively wide, so I can't imagine it's going to impede any boat traffic or anything like that.
And Army Corps looks at that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was in the application,
Thank you.
approved by the state.
It drops off a lot there when you get out, but it's got, you know, it's not in the, this wharf isn't going into the channel, and neither is will the dock and
Yeah.
ramp.
Okay, cool.
does say in the application from the state rather, that there are several other piers that are visible from the site. And this will cause minimal change to the characteristics of the area. And it says that it doesn't block navigation. So
Oh, good. Where do you see that, David?
I'm looking at DEP department order in the matter of Maya Hart and the residential pier. You have to go down through the whole description and then The Department of Marine Resources reviewed the project, stated that the proposed project should not cause any significant adverse impact to navigation or recreation based on the nature of the project and its location.
Perfect.
So that kind of,
Yeah, they did.
it covers the most important part as far as we're concerned, I think.
Yeah, I read,
That's on the 12-page approval of permit, right?
yes.
Right.
Yeah, and there was and it also says that the bottom has no vegetation. It's mostly clam flats and ledge. And,
Right.
I think you meet all the criteria.
Yes, it does.
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve this?
Yeah, so moved.
I'll do that.
All
I
right,
make a motion to approve the application for the pier and the float and the ramp.
okay, and Ben, would you like to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. So George, get your hammer out, I guess.
Right. But we still have Ken still has to issue the permit.
What's that?
Take a vote.
I said, I think Ken still issues the permit.
Yeah.
You guys have
Excuse me.
approved it, and so.
Sorry,
Okay, we didn't vote on that. I
Yes,
got you,
please.
Harriet.
Well,
Thank you.
it's been approved, right?
But in the excuse me. So in the further discussion, George has said that Ken still has to issue the permit to build. But he's probably waiting for our approval. So now that we've the motion's been heard and seconded, and we've had some discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No nays. So the motion passes. And we'll notify the town office and have Ken issue that permit for you, George.
Should we get from George the specific dimensions that they're planning on that will be different to this paperwork?
I think that the paperwork says that it's a 30-foot ramp. It says a 5 by 24-foot wharf or pier, and then it says a 10 by 12-foot long float. And I think that's what's been approved.
Yeah, did that come today?
No, this did not come today. If there's something that's been updated that the town has received,
Right.
Ken can review that and issue that permit. But for right now, you said something about a
No, that
12
sounds-
by 12-foot float.
It sounds right on.
Okay.
My worry is that the various forms that I'm looking at have a variety of different dimensions.
Yes, but that's true. But the one that's important is it's about the 4th or 5th page in, and it lists the length of the fixed section, the width of the fixed section, the length of the ramp,
Okay.
and the dimensions of the float. And that's on the approved application from the state.
Thank you, Nick.
Sounds good.
Okay,
That's it?
that's it, George. Thank you very
I'm done.
much. What's
Okay,
that?
thanks, fellas, and Harriet.
Okay,
And
have a good evening.
I'm signing off.
Good night.
Right.
Have a good night.
Okay, you too.
Thank
Thanks.
George.
Leave.
I'm just trying to find my agenda here. The only other thing I think we have on the agenda tonight is the approval for the minutes of November 21, 2019. And Nick was there, Peter was there, David Bailey was there. So does anybody have any adjustment to those? This is the one where we were approving Tyler Pope's yurt
Right.
on
His
the
yurt.
property.
Yeah.
I looked at them, I think they're correct.
What's that?
I looked at the minutes, I think they're correct.
I just read the minutes before the meeting and I think they're correct. It's Peter.
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
so I'll make a motion that we record the minutes to the November 21, 2019 Planning Board meeting as submitted. Would anybody like to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Many nays?
I'll abstain.
Yeah, we're gonna let you do that.
Going to the meeting, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's it.
Well, hold on. I'm sorry. Well,
Go ahead.
While I get you guys, could I make a motion or suggest that we discuss two other topics real quickly?
Yes.
The first is that as of Monday, the Board of Selectmen did decide to hold a special town meeting regarding the proposed core zoning code and new road, driveway, and entrances ordinance, and make changes to the existing land use ordinance. And they set the date for that special town meeting as September 29th.
Paper today, yes.
Yeah. So that's a month and 9 days from now. So by law, the planning board would need to hold a public hearing, and our next regularly scheduled meeting would be September 17th, which would comply with the time frame that's necessary to hold that public hearing within a certain time frame of the actual vote. So I would suggest that we discuss holding a public hearing that night, and then make it kind of formal that we do that, so that it can be noticed in the paper that we're going to be having that public hearing.
That's gonna be a public Zoom meeting?
So that's for us to discuss and decide. How do we want to do that?
But they're gonna have a couple public meetings in the parking lot and prior to that, or people to sit and discuss the ordinance?
Yeah, I think the Board of Selectmen had discussed doing some meetings on some Saturdays
Two Saturday evenings or something like that.
or mornings. I honestly, I don't know the exact specifics about what the
It's in the
board is
paper,
doing.
I just didn't note it down.
Yeah.
And that the public meeting is gonna be under a tent up at Foster's?
I believe that's correct. We're going to have an open air special town meeting. There'll be a big tent set up outside, and I believe that someone is working on getting an FM transmitter so that folks who don't feel comfortable getting in under the tent can stay in their car and tune in, which is kind of cool.
Pretty slick.
I don't know how large a number a Zoom meeting can have.
It's,
So for a public hearing, it seems to me, well, the two things that come to mind, a Zoom meeting seems more, well, either way, somebody could say it's more inclusive to have a public meeting in a parking lot in the open air, or some people could say, well, it's more inclusive to have one on a Zoom meeting. I guess that's up to us. I think it would probably be a more manageable affair if we held the next planning board meeting on the 17th somewhere in the open air. I think that would be, with the, safety precautions in place, social distancing and masks.
Or if there's a weather problem, can't they pull the fire trucks out? We have the planning board meeting that included the waterfront zoning before the condos were built was held in the fire station. They pulled the trucks out so that we had plenty of room for people in there. You could spread people out pretty far.
We should talk to Clayton about that, but either way, I think you're right, Ben. If we need to by law have the planning board needs to have a public hearing, and the 17th fits within that time frame, then we should. So the only thing to decide is whether we do it by a Zoom meeting or we do it in public.
So there's,
The interwebs, sorry, Ben, just a second. The interwebs tell me that the 100 participants for any Zoom plan for a meeting, and if you have something called the large meeting add-on, you can have up to 500. Wouldn't want to try to control that, but there it is.
I doubt we'd get that many anyway. If we got 100, I'd be surprised.
So there is an alternative, and the Board of Selectmen did this. It's not ideal, but these are not ideal times, and having open air gatherings of people is limited to 100 people, even if we do it outside. So by law, and that's not going to change by then. So what the Board of Selectmen did for a public hearing that they held was to actually open the public hearing prior to the end of the public hearing and give a window of time for any resident to submit comments in writing that could then be read at the close of the public hearing. So for example, if we were to say we want to hold a public hearing on the 17th of September, we will open the public hearing, say on the 3rd of September, where we just get together and say, we're opening the public hearing, submit your comments, and this is how you do that. Those comments would then be read by us on the 17th. And that's how you get the public comment out. A public hearing really is really designed as we're looking for your comments, and here they are.
So how are they submitted? They're submitted through email to the town?
So what the board did was they can be done via email, and we could choose who would receive those emails. You know, the clerk could get them, the town administrator the town manager, I'm sorry, could get them and collect them for the board or for the planning board. They could also drop off written comments at the town office. They could mail comments in postal mail to the town office. And that's another way of doing it. And I put that out there just as an option. If we're going to be holding an open air special town meeting on the 29th, it does seem reasonable that we should be able to do an open air public hearing on the 17th of September. That does make sense. It's just a question of, you know, again, where and how. And it would be, you know, it would be weather dependent, just like the September 29th date is.
Well, I mean, do we have to make a motion to do this? I guess we do, but I think that's the way to go.
Which way?
What you just described. No, I think to have an open meeting, an open air meeting, because there's a lot of people that would just like to come and listen to something like this, but have people submit their comments, have the opportunity for people to submit their comments beforehand.
Typically, when we've been discussing ordinances and things like that, there are a number of people that get up multiple times as they hear what somebody says to either refute it or add to it. So yeah, I think probably you should ask the select board to figure out a way that we can have an open public meeting under a tent, or that would allow 100 under the new rules if it's outside.
Correct.
If it's inside, you can only have 50, I guess, at this point.
So in order to accomplish that, since we're just bringing it up now, if we don't take action on that right now, then we would need to just call an emergency planning board meeting sometime between now and then to set that date and set that method of having the public hearing. And it should probably be done sooner rather than later so that we can get the notices in the paper.
Well, I don't think David's going to have any, David Hewitt's going to have any problem. I don't see Jim having any problem with that. I don't see why, and we're here tonight. I think we should just decide it tonight. We have Harriet recording, and just get it done with. So,
I'll make that as a motion that we as a planning board, ask the town to facilitate an open air meeting, hopefully with a tent shelter for a public hearing on the 17th of September.
I'll second the motion.
okay, all in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thanks, Ben. Now you got something else.
Got one more thing. I'm sorry, guys.
No, that's all right.
Well, I just wanted to let you know that as I was doing my work as part of the zoning committee to prepare the new proposed core zoning code and land use ordinance changes, I discovered that parts of our shoreland ordinance have sort of been moved around and altered a little bit. In addition, I reviewed the state model chapter 1000 shoreland zoning ordinance and found some, some new information that they've updated it. And actually it was from, I think the last time they updated it was, oh my God, I can't remember the date, 3-4 years ago. But our shoreland, which I think has been tinkered with a little bit, was adopted back, I think, in 2009. So there's a couple things that I'd like to just sort of say, which is that we as the planning board, I'd like to make the recommendation that we take on the task of reviewing chapter 1000. And in addition, we should probably take the opportunity to engage someone to help us review the shoreland maps, because in the time between when we developed the shoreland maps and resource protection maps that we have in our current shoreland ordinance and now, the mapping technology has gotten much better. And Peter, I think you know probably more about this than I do, but Mal Carey has been involved with getting those maps together and understanding what's been going on with that, and we have a greater degree of accuracy than we ever had before. And so I kind of see it as a dovetail option for the town to maybe review some of the changes to shoreland, clean up some of the sort of Band-Aids that have been put on the shoreland zoning ordinance over the years, and maybe get some new, better, higher resolution maps all together. And I'm not saying we have to do it immediately, but if we embark on that process over the next 6 months, a year, and get that done, it might be just nice to get that ball moving.
So what you're saying is to layer the shoreland use code essentially over high resolution maps to come up with more accurate resource protection?
We could just draw the maps better, I think, right now. Like the way that the maps are drawn and the way that the boundaries are described, Mal would honestly he'd be able to explain this a lot better than me, but I'll just say that the boundaries are a little bit fuzzy. And when there's a question about what the boundary is, having a high, like 1 foot, increments, or even 6-inch increments, using LiDAR.
I have a brother that's exactly what he does for Nationwide. He works for a company doing just that, lives in Canada.
So I guess I see it as an opportunity to update the maps, review chapter 1000, and maybe propose that we just do like a wholesale sort of, readopt new shoreline standards based on the new chapter 1000 from the state, update our maps, and then sort of just, jettison kind of what we have right now so that we don't have to try and just keep band-aiding it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Makes sense, because way in the past, we've had cases where we've had to get somebody from the DEP to come here in order to settle a dispute about the shoreline map, going all the way back to where the condos are on the pier. We've had a few other places where there's been we've needed the state to straighten us out as to what the actual situation was. So yeah, we should match the state shorelines. Because otherwise sometimes you'll have an applicant and the state is not available to come and you don't have the answer. It just hangs that person up, which is not fair.
So is this something another thing we should make a motion to do this, or is it just
I guess,
a commitment to ourselves?
yeah, I don't think we need to take action on it right now, but I might suggest that for our next meeting as well, I don't know if it's going to be our next meeting if we're doing the public hearing, but maybe the meeting after that on our agenda, we have to just review Chapter 1000 of the Shoreland ordinance, the state model ordinance, and also, you know, take a gander at ours so that we familiarize ourselves with the sections that have changed, and we can begin to have that conversation. And if it'll be 2 months, I guess, before we end up beginning that conversation, we could see about getting some of that map data maybe started and see if, you know, then I was honestly gonna, you know, with permission of the board, see if we could ask Mal if he might be interested in taking on part of that project, because I know he loves doing maps, and he might not, but we might need to engage the services of a cartographer to help us update those maps with the new data that the state has.
Would Mal be interested in talking to us about the comparison with the shoreline and what we should be looking for compared to our?
We could certainly ask him if he'd like to come to the next meeting and discuss it with us.
The next meeting or the second?
I'm sorry, yeah, October.
October meeting.
To me,
I think that's a great idea. I mean, anytime you can step away from the confusion that we have into something more accurate makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
I gotta step out at this point, so I'm glad I was able to get involved. And the next one, I'll have to get a caregiver said if I was going to a meeting, she would come over here. And I didn't think to ask her to come here while I was in the other room on this, but I have coverage for when we have real meetings, so.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So the only other thing I just wanted to let everybody know is that the board has been engaged in having the community room where the planning board meets at the fire station.
Yes.
Or were you meeting at the town hall?
We were meeting.
No, we were meeting at the town hall.
So I think all town meetings are going to be moved at some point soon over to the community room at the fire station on River Road. And
The maps were over there. We were in the.
right. So that room is getting upgrades like new flooring, paint. It'll have a new HVAC system. It'll have a new ventilation system. It should meet all the requirements for having safe meetings, indoor meetings, you know, with social distancing and everything like that, provided we have less than 50 people in the room at a given time and we can maintain social distancing. I don't know what those numbers look like, but the idea is at some point we'll be able to meet face to face again over there.
You know that it needed HVAC because when we had meetings over there, we had the mosquitoes coming in the windows before we finally got some screens in there, and it's
Yeah, I think there's going to be a combination of an air exchanger and some heat pumps to manage the.
good idea. Okay,
That's all I've got. I don't want to.
welcome, Ben.
Well, thank you.
Our new boss.
So I think we're 1 or 2 people short on the board. Are we not?
No, we're not. We have David and Peter are alternates. David just left the meeting. David and Peter are alternates. We have Jim Brinkler, myself, and David Hewitt.
Okay, great.
So that's
4 and 2.
that's 4-2. Yes.
Oh, so we do need one more technically.
We should have 7.
Well, we should have, I think, 5 full members. Unless Peter, I guess David has expressed, I think, that he wants to remain an alternate.
I think he does.
David Bailey.
David Bailey.
Yeah, and he's really handy as an alternate because he there's a lot of institutional
It's the knowledge.
Yeah.
So it should be 5-2, you're saying?
Well, whether we have the alternates or not, I think it's probably more important to have those 5 primary seats filled. So, you know, Peter, have you thought at all about just becoming a full member? Are you?
I haven't been asked. I have a lot of other stuff going on. I'm away sometimes. So that may be a drawback, but this is my way of putting my 2 cents in somewhere. I can't vote. I can't do anything else because I'm not a citizen. So I can do what I'm doing here and be a little bit useful.
You're not a citizen of the town?
Of the United States of America.
Oh,
So you know what's interesting about that? I got to check on this. I don't know that residency requires you to be a citizen.
I cannot vote on anything. I can't be a selectman. Anything political, I can't be involved in.
Well, selectman isn't political. It doesn't run on party.
Okay.
And I'll check on that, honestly, because that's an interesting thing. I mean, I'm curious just for being curious, but I think residency requirements actually.
that's a question for Peter Drum.
It is a question. Yeah. Yeah.
I have close contact with that man, so I can ask him.
Yeah,
Good. You
as
should.
a town guy. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me that much. Currently voting for anything is a challenge, but I don't need to do that. The important thing for me is to just, the town has given me a place to stay, and I think that I should be doing something about that.
Well, we
oh,
appreciate
well,
it.
you're,
Thank
well,
you.
Glad to be
it's- I appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
nice to be involved.
Absolutely.
So, do you have anybody in mind?
Well, when we had convened the zoning committee, the last committee that worked on zoning code stuff, there were a couple members on that board that I was thinking about approaching. I wanted to check with the rest to see, where the interest lies. I know there'd been some talk that some members, I know Bonnie, she decided to leave, and that's great. She was awesome for years, and can't ask for anything more. It's just always good to, see if we can keep people that are interested and develop interest where we can and have them, involved. So if we have a seat, there are a couple of people I'd maybe ask. See if we get any hint.
I think it makes sense to do that. Asking, you may just get no, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Right.
No, I think the more the merrier. Every time I get involved in these things, I end up.
Oh, Nick, something happened to your mic.
You can't hear me?
It's really, really quiet.
Yep. Unusually quiet, Nick.
Is it an external mic that maybe fell over?
No, it's just right there, but I'm not on mute. Can you hear me now?
Same volume.
Yeah.
I just increased my volume. No, I just don't know what I've done.
Oh, that's all right. I didn't have anything else. We can call it a night.
Okay, well then, well, thanks, Ben, for coming on board. Thanks for being the chairman. I really didn't
Absolutely.
feel like I was ready to take that mantle myself.
Great. Well, I'm happy to serve. Happy to be a part of it. As you know, I've been involved with town stuff for a while now, so it's kind of a natural move. So I'll make some inquiries and find out, and I'll work with Harriet on developing the agenda for the special town for the next public hearing, and then also for our meeting in October, and we'll circulate those as soon as we can. Whether we have an applicant or not in October, I think we should probably have a meeting.
Okay, no, that sounds.
Well, if the shoreland, sorry, Nick,
Go ahead.
if the shoreland thing is coming up, then we should be there anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Good.
Okay, then
Thank-
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Nick.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ben.
Good night,
Thank
All
you,
right.
Harriet.
Have a good night. Thanks, Harriet.
Good night, Harriet.
Good night, thank you.
Bye-bye.